You were talking about, which is something I never thought about, that dentists were actually the first sole proprietors of medical clinics.
Yeah, it always struck me. I always found it interesting because, dentistry is kind of the one healthcare specialty that I could think of, at least, where it's the norm to start your own practice. Obviously, family physicians, yes, of course, specialties, yes, depending on the specialty, but, dentistry, it's really expected, and they're these pillars of their community. And what I started to realize was through becoming friends with them that they don't necessarily want to be entrepreneurs. A lot of them don't think of it that way. They go to school to be great clinicians, and U of M obviously has a really great dental school, and I spent some time there and got to know some folks there. And I realized pretty early on as well, like, they don't get taught a lot about marketing. I mean, even like finance. I mean, just basic e-com finance, running a business 101, what's a P&L. So I became really kind of drawn to it for that reason, but also just I knew some really incredible people, and they were also not clinicians. And that immediately set off a thing in my mind. And I'm like, how are you guys like owning practices, but you're not, a dentist? And they kind of explained the concept of what a DSO was and the MSO model. And I saw it and I really kind of fell in love with it. And I was like, this is something I really want to learn more about. And I think there's a saying in dentistry, everybody kind of finds dentistry in weird ways, if you're not, especially if you're not a dentist. But everybody kind of finds it in sort of an eclectic way. And that was my weird path of getting into dentistry. And I just fell in love with it. Like, helping patients, finding that there was a lot of room for improvement, let's call it, on the data side. It was an industry that, still to this day, I would still consider is probably 10 years behind where Silicon Valley is in terms of the tools and stuff that they have. So I kind of fell in love with it for that reason, because I'm like, okay, this is my add value. This is what I can bring to the table. I have a great mentor of mine in California that, was very successful in the tech scene. And he said, don't even think about starting a Me Too business. Like, if you're even thinking about it, don't build Instagram 2. It already exists. You're going to have to do something different. You're going to have to build, TikTok or LinkedIn or something like that if it doesn't exist yet. But you can't just build a Me Too product. And that always struck me as well. So I came in as a partner and our chief operating officer. We had two offices at the time, but I took the role very seriously and I wanted to learn as much as I could. And we sold that business a couple of years later to quite a large DSO, and I learned about how they were structured and their processes and so on. And we decided to do it again. So a couple of years later, we started what's now called Executive Dental Partners. We have 7 practices in Southeast Michigan. That's kind of how I got involved into dentistry, at least.
So let me get this straight. You now own 7 of your own dental practices.
With some partners, yes.
But that must be extremely informative for Rise. How much does your owning of clinics inform your actual boots on the ground at Rise?
So it's funny because so we were never supposed to start Rise. Rise was never supposed to be a company or anything like that. It literally, and I was telling this story earlier today with a client, we were talking about it, and it's like, it was basically something that we kind of started out of necessity. I mean, starting a company is a really sort of extreme thing to do. And I think you have to really the pain has to be great enough for you to want to do something like that, especially because we were so focused on growing our practices. And so, truth be told, I came in and my partner is a very salt of the earth, very frugal guy. And I say that with all due respect. I'm cheap as hell. And, dentists tend to be very cheap. And that's exactly how I am. But he calls me into his office one day and he goes, look, I know you did a bunch of fancy tech stuff. That's awesome. Like, I don't really care about that. Like, I believe in you. I think you're a cool kid. I think you've got a lot of energy behind you. You clearly want to make stuff happen and whatever. But I'm gonna level with you. I've never worked with a dental consultant that I've liked, and I've never worked with a dental marketing company that I didn't hate. And I'm leaving out some F-bombs. And I was like, oh, okay, well, why is that? And he goes, look, I give them my money. I don't know what the hell they do. I don't understand what they're doing with it. They kind of take it, they go off and they whatever. No one knows what they're doing with it. And then when they come back to me, it's these like sleazy salespeople, and some of them are really nice and whatever, but they just tell me what I want to hear, and then nothing's actually moving. And I was like, okay, that's super interesting. I didn't really do anything with that information at the time, but it became my responsibility to find the right marketing partner. So I instantly translated that thought into, oh, let me go try to find the right marketing partner. 3 years later, I got it. I was exhausted. I was like, I've tried 40 different companies. I've tried the big ones, the small ones, the guys that run Google ads out of their mom's basement and are really, technical. I tried every persona of marketing company that you could try. And one day kind of a light bulb went off and I go, why is this so bad? And I was like, it's so bad because their definition of success as a marketing vendor is way different than my definition of success as an owner. I just want more new patients. I want quality new patients. I want to re-engage my existing patients. Even today as a marketer, now that I am kind of a marketer, I'm like, look, the cheapest patient you could still get is your existing patient. But I was like, I'm measuring success in new patients that spend money with me. That's how I determine a quality patient. My marketing vendors are measuring success based on conversions, clicks, impressions, all of these vanity metrics that I know what they are because I'm in tech, but dentists aren't going to know what that is. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's hard to understand these things. So that was kind of the light bulb moment. And we started building this for ourselves. So we started building the technology out for ourselves. I remembered back to when I was doing, our tech stuff in Silicon Valley, the companies had these platforms that measured all their marketing. And so you could plug in radio, TV, billboard, Google ads, Facebook ads, even within Google ads, all the different ads that they were running, and you'd be able to objectively determine apples to apples what made the most money and where you were actually getting your ROI from. And I was like, oh, we need that for dentistry. And I thought, okay, give me a year and $100,000 budget and we'll do it. Well, 3 years later, and a lot more money than that, we ended up building out what became Rise DDS. And I just started showing it to friends. Like by that point, a lot of my friends were already dentists or doctors, and I just started showing it to them and just showing them what we were doing. And the whole narrative was like, give me that now. Like, give me it now. I don't really care how much it costs. Let me be your guinea pig. Let me be your tester. So to this day, we still have about probably 30 offices that whenever I come up with like a mad scientist idea, we kind of give it to them first. And those
what was the most attractive thing at that moment? What were all those clients telling you why they wanted to be with you? What was their biggest complaint, and then what were you offering that they didn't have?
They felt like they were spending money on marketing and they had no idea where it was going. It was just going out into the ether. I just spoke with a client the other day that literally made me laugh, like on the floor. And he goes, we've got Jarvis Analytics, we've got Domo, you've got Dental Intel, you've got all these companies that can now in 2024 give you really great insight into what's going on with your practice itself. But he said, whenever I'm looking at marketing, I feel like I'm looking at the tea leaves and reading smoke signals. And, it's like I'm entering a new world of basically bullshit that I have no idea, where my money is going. And so our system shows them the dollars. It shows them, here's the patients, here's exactly where they came from. We can integrate with pretty much every channel now, almost every patient management system, Dentrix, Open Dental, Eaglesoft, all the main ones. And you can objectively see, okay, this is where your patients are coming from. This is specifically the ads that they're coming from. Marketing is complicated. There's no silver bullet. And we always get pitched all the time. I think every dentist and owner operator would understand this. You get pitched all the time by companies that are constantly selling you something like a new shiny object or a silver bullet. And what I've learned is over the last now 7-8 years that we've been doing this, there's no silver bullet. It's not even really about that. It's more about measuring what's working, measuring what's not working, and being able to, just have the right allocation of budgets, and then also understand which ads are actually making the money. So that's what the Rise system does.
So it's really about transparency.
Exactly.
So
yes.
What does that transparency do for your clients? How are they then allowed to then go do whatever they want to do or do what they need to do for their business once they have that? How is that translate into growth, new patients, and more money?
So, number one, they don't really have to worry about it. And, you see a lot of pitches nowadays about, I see a lot of commercials, I feel like, where it's like, hey, we take care of this part so that you can live your life the way that you want to live it or whatever. And, I was kind of laughing, but it is kind of true, because that's how I feel like That's what I feel we've been able to do with the tech, because now the return on investment's right there. It's in our dashboard. It's in our system. They know every dollar I put in, I just made $6 back this month. So at the end of the day, I say this all the time, but it's like, I don't have any delusions of grandeur about what we do. It's taken us years and, you know, a very small team of very dedicated people to try to figure this problem out. And I think part of that is just because I'm sort of OCD and I have problems and I have trouble sleeping and I like to think about things and I'm neurotic. And so the combination of those things sort of created this product that's this beautiful little product that, you know, people can see, okay, I put it, you know, I always tell my clients, like, look, it's very simple what we do. You give me money, you give our company money, and we're going to give you $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 back every month for every dollar that comes in. A huge problem with the way that marketing is sold right now, and Jeff can attest to this as well, is that marketing is sold where it's like, they measure things. When they do even attempt to measure things, it's based on lifetime patient value. So for example, you know, you'll get a marketing company, you'll spend $5,000 a month with them, and they'll come back to you every month and say, hey, we only got you 5 patients this month, and we told you we were going to get you 50. We only got you 5, but what are those 5 worth over 4 years? Each one is worth $4,000. And that's where being, you know, in my position as a chief operating officer really helped, because I wasn't just looking at the internal numbers. And this is where most operators get hung up. They're just looking at their internal numbers, their production, their case acceptance, what happened, their collections. But they're forgetting the fact that you also have to realistically look at your average cost per patient acquisition. They're totally forgetting this. They're just thinking of marketing as this generic bucket that I just spend $5,000 a month, and then the patients are going to trickle in. Well, no, it's actually a lot more complicated than that. In this case, in a good way. You can actually, I mean, half the time I'm telling our clients to cut their budgets in half. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, really? You know, it's like an iceberg through the water. Marketing is like an iceberg in the water. It's only that little 20% above the waterline that's actually profiting you. The other 80% is either breaking even or losing money. And so it's only when you can identify which marketing channels are making you money and losing money that you're actually able to reinvest and then get everything above the waterline, get everything profitable. And you're not going to be perfect, but you can have 80, 90% above the waterline. And if you're a DSO, if you own hundreds of practices, just, you know, compound that. I mean, it's insane what they can do. So
that's a really, really interesting way of putting it, because that is something that I deal with on a daily basis. Is my competitors are constantly throwing out these marketing analytics that really mean nothing to the clients. They're just numbers that really say nothing. Oh, well, you're getting a branding where, you know, I work a lot in TV, so it's, oh, well, we're getting your brand out, and and it's like, that's, you can't quantify that. And it's just such an easy thing where, you know, generally it ends up being that the client, that my competitors are just going to say, well, you got to wait 3-4 months for that to work. And then by the time we see that it's not working, they've already built you out of, you know, 60, 70 grand. So